Please forgive me for murdering all these people's names. The only one that I've got is Fela Kuti and Tony Allen. They're bang on. But anyway, the Fela
Well,
Kuti.
kudos for making it over the Tony Allen hurdle. I mean, that must have been taxing. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy. That's John, and it's time to chow down on some music. And John is going to be offering up a song for me to go off and listen to. I'm looking forward to it. I'll give it a listen, then we're going to come back and chop it up a bit. But John, what have you got in the chamber, my friend?
So the artist is Fela Kuti.
Okay. All right. Surprising as that this may sound, vague. I don't know any of his music. I just know that he's kind of like a godfather of Afrobeat, isn't he?
Yeah, exactamundo.
Yeah, exactly. And he's from Africa. He's from Nigeria. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know that like some artists over the last, I don't know how many years have kind of like maybe sampled him or given nods to him or took inspiration from him. And that's sort of how I'm familiar with him. I don't know any of his stuff firsthand. So, but knowing all that and having just this, knowing that he's been around and been influential to some degree, and Afrobeat is always fun to listen to. I'm looking forward to checking this out. So what is the name of the track?
This track is called Zombie.
Oh, I'm assuming this is not a Cranberries cover.
No.
Okay, great. That would be really weird. All right,
Yeah.
well, cool. I look forward to giving it a listen. So let me skedaddle off and do just that, and then I'll return with my findings. Funky little guitar noodling. Oh yeah. Rhythms. The polyrhythms are strong in this one. Yeah, sounds so goddamn good. Ooh. Oh, that bass. Horns are fucking amazing. For some reason, I could imagine this music in like this 1970s gritty New York-based like police show or something like that, where cops slide across the hood of their cars before they get in to go catch the perp or whatever. Yeah. Regardless of my daydreams of ridiculousness, this fucking music is so fabulous. These breaks where the horns just kind of do their thing, and then the rhythm section coming rolling back in there with this amazing bass work and these drums that don't quit. All of it sounds great. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be vocals in this or not, but at this point, if this is just what it does for 12 and a half minutes, like, I'm perfectly content with that. I love that.
Zombie, oh zombie. Zombie, oh zombie. Zombie, oh zombie. Zombie, oh zombie.
Call and response.
Unless you tell him to go. Zombie. Zombie not go stop unless you tell him to stop. Zombie. Zombie not go turn unless you tell him to turn. Zombie. Zombie not go think unless you tell him to think. Zombie. Zombie, oh zombie.
I'm wondering who this zombie is. I mean, it's a good name for whomever they're talking about, because it seems like they're just like these mindless beings that do exactly what they're told. I'm interested to figure out who exactly they're talking about. I know he's Nigerian, and this song is clearly got 70s written all over it, which is an interesting time for Nigeria, if my memory serves me correctly, from my God, quite some, almost 20 years ago, getting my my history lesson on the politics of Africa in university. But yeah, I don't yet know. I'm gonna wait. Hopefully, maybe some of these lyrics give me a clearer picture. But I know that there was a civil war that wrapped up by I think the very early 70s, and then sort of this vacuum that occurred thereafter for about a decade of just political and economic strife. So my guess is it has something to do with that, but pinpointing exactly who this the zombie is in the equation is, to me, yet to be known. So let's press on and maybe I'll get a better inclination.
Zombie, oh zombie. Zombie, oh zombie. Zombie not go go unless you tell him to go. Zombie not go stop unless you tell him to stop. Zombie not go turn unless you tell him to turn. Zombie not go think unless you tell him to think. Zombie, oh zombie. Zombie, oh zombie. Zombie, oh zombie. Zombie, oh zombie. Tell him to go straight. Na joro jara joro. No break, no jam, no sense. Na joro jara joro. Tell him to go kill. Na joro jara joro. No break, no jam, no sense. Na joro jara joro. Tell him to go quench. Na joro jara joro. No break, no jam, no sense. Na joro jara joro. Go and kill. Go and die. Go and quench. Put up all the verse.
This is
Go
great.
and quench. Go and kill.
Okay, I think he said it's. I think he said something. I think that's the word quench I'm catching. But he also said go on die and go on kill. I think, and judging by the thumbnail, I'm assuming he's talking about these the soldiers, or the military, or the soldiers that make up the military. I guess it's really one and the same. So I'm kind of inclined to say that it's a song about the sort of the military, because I think at the time there was like a militaristic regime that ruled over Nigeria there for a while, if I'm not mistaken. This is like a Cliff Notes version of my, which is probably the extent of my recollection of this stuff from school. But yeah, this is interesting. This went to a darker and much different place than I thought. Well, hell, I didn't even know we were gonna get lyrics or vocals in this, and then when we do, I'm like wanting to move my shoulders, all these polyrhythms and great horns and all this stuff, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like dopamine, and then you get these lyrics that are pretty dark. Interesting combination.
Go and die. Put up all the verse. Go and die. Go and quench. Go and kill. Joro jara joro, zombie when I one way. Joro jara joro, zombie when I one way. Joro jara joro, zombie when I one way. Joro jara joro.
I love that.
Whoa. Attention, big match.
Oh.
Left turn, right turn, up turn, double up, salute, open your hat, stand at ease, fall in, fall out, fall down, dead ready, attention, quick match, slow match, left turn, right turn, up turn, double up, salute, open your hat, stand at ease, fall in, fall out, Order.
Yeah, he said order, and I was thinking, as it led up to that, these sound like marching orders that are being given to, again, these troops, only further kind of codifying this presumption of mine.
Attention, quick match, slow match, left turn, right turn, back turn, double up, salute, open your hand, stand at ease, fall in, fall out, fall down, get ready, attention, quick match, slow match, left turn, right turn, back turn, double up, salute, open your hand, stand at ease, fall in, fall out, fall down, get ready, hot! Order!
Huh. That's interesting.
One more time, everybody.
All right, one more time.
Attention, quick march, slow march, left turn, right turn, back turn, double up,
This-
salute, upon your hand,
The vocal dynamics here are great.
fall in, fall out, fall down,
Ooh, these keys. Just cascading over the rhythms. So much happening. Oh, god damn. Oh. Well, I'm taking that back, and that kind of ices the cake on my presumption. That is like kind of like this butchered a little bit, I'm sure with intent, version of like Reveille or something like that, which is, you know, obviously you think of soldiers and troops and marching. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a safe bet that this is about the military at the time and whatever the hell they were up to, which I'm sure was probably some pretty nefarious shit. I can't wait to talk to John about this one some more, but yeah, let's listen to this again. Descending, it's nice. Ooh. Damn. That was a lot to take in. I mean, obviously, right, it's 12.5 minute long song or damn near, but yeah, kind of a whirlwind, right? Because it started off, as I mentioned, like kind of like, yeah, this is some groove, you know, I could dance to this, I can move to this, and then it made me think my ass off, because you know, I had to go in the Wayback Machine for my own, you know, personal educational experience as to when I learned any bit about what I think he's talking about. Though at this point I'm pretty sure which is really interesting experience. Like this marriage of art and history, and it's an interesting amalgam, and it's in ways it's better than just like turning on a documentary or picking up a book. Now, I'm not saying that it should be your only means of ingesting historical data or information, but there's something less sterile about this. You pick up a book and you're just reading. You know, maybe your imagination can do some things. The older I get, the fewer things it can do. But this idea of marrying music to the historical, you know, information there's something more visceral about it, or you feel more connected. You feel like there's a barrier that's been knocked down. It just feels more human and connected, which is it's just an interesting dynamic, right? I mean, it's art and history coming together. It's comparable to going to an art museum. Like you go to the Smithsonian, and you walk through and you see some really evocative paintings. You know, I can think of some art during the the Franco era of Spain, you know, in the early 20th century, and there's some really interesting art centered around that period. And that's just one example. I mean, shit, Christ, goes on forever, right? But it's a really interesting thing when art and history are married together in such a way that it's both entertainment and it's educational. I don't know. There's more connection for me anyway when it's packaged up like that, and it makes it that much more enjoyable. I hope I'm not wasting all of our time talking about this stuff to come to find out it has nothing to do with my presumptions, but there's just seems to be too much in the way of like pointing that in the direction of me possibly being at least on the right track here. So God, I really enjoyed this. This is a lot of fun, and kind of eye-opening as well. So let's get back to John and learn some more, because I'm jonesing to hear what he has to say about this track.
The Kazi of Calabar, he's back. So you've had a listen to Zombie, a little quick trot around for that brief little ditty. What did you think?
Oh yeah, very brief. Ditty is exactly the word that I would use to describe it. It's an interesting song, both musically and from a lyrical content standpoint. And I gotta say, as it relates to the latter and not the former, I was surprised. One, that there were lyrics to this because of how far into the woods you had to get before you reached them, and just the juxtaposition of the groove and the like movement inducing nature of the music with this, narrative or lyrical content that I think there's this little cherry on top toward the very end that kind of sealed the deal on my presumptions as far as what this song was about. That I'm pretty sure I've got it, but you're gonna help me with this. And even if I do have it, this is really fucking interesting from a lyrical standpoint and what they talked about. Like,
Well, you have no idea. You
yeah,
have no idea.
as someone who studied political science and international policy in college, some vague recollections of things of my educational experience came back into my mind as I was listening to this. As I mentioned, I think my recollection are essentially Cliff Notes version of what actually happened. So you're gonna do some filling in for me, even if I have an inkling of what's going on here. So the song, it kicks off. It's got this funky little, it sounds like twin guitar noodling, and then slowly the beat emerges in the form of what sounds like hand drums out of the gate, and I hear the light like that. You can't mistake that of like a hi-hat that's coming in. and some horn peppering, some notation, and the song grows. You got some bass coming in there that's fucking amazing. So it all swells to this fuller sound, and almost a minute and a half through this epic, I pick up on some like metallic block or like cowbell. It didn't sound so hollow as a cowbell, but maybe it was hit on the more narrow portion of the cowbell to create less of a echoey sort of hollow sound. But regardless, that was happening, and I dug that, as simple as that instrument is. Um, so yeah, all the while the horns are blasting off with these infectious little motifs. And there's this like passing of the baton, which we've talked about in previous songs that are instrumentals or instrumentally driven. And so the baton's going between like horn and sounds like we got some woodwind. I think I'm definitely hearing some saxophone in here over the top of these killer the polyrhythmic drumming in this song is fucking amazing. And it kind of sums up the whole movement of everything that's happening here, which is why I found myself like just wanting to fucking dance. And then like he comes in, I started hearing the narrative, and I'm like, oh fuck, white guilt. Like just that's it. I'm just listening to this shit like, oh my god, stop moving, Andy. Listen, there's a lesson in here. But regardless of all that, it really does sound terrific. So somewhere around the 5 minute mark, or it's somewhere in there as I recall. I'm daydreaming because like he hasn't started with the lyrics yet. So I'm imagining like this music being the perfect soundtrack for like a 1970s gritty New York based crime drama based on two cops. Like I can imagine a cop sliding over the top of his cruiser, you know what I mean, with a still shot. It's like, you know what I mean, Hutchins, and he's like sliding across. All of it had that sound to it, you know what I mean? Which I think like to some degree, like a lot of like blaxploitation movies and shit like that kind of had music akin to this going on in the background. So that's probably what it's stirring up in me. This, you know, vague recollection of films from set in that time period. So yeah, all of the daydreaming comes to an end, and lucidity, you know, rears its head as the singer makes his appearance, singing the titular line, and he is soon joined by a group of singers who kind of mimic the line in this call and response fashion, which is a motif that we'll see throughout a lot of the track. And the lead singer then notes that something about zombie no go, no stop, no turn, or think unless you tell him to, this whoever this zombie is. Naturally, the wheels are, you know, as rusty as they are starting to turn in my head, trying to decipher who he might be referring to. And now, I know that the 1970s were a tumultuous time in the history of Nigeria. And this is like the end of the Civil War, I think was like the early 70s or late 60s, somewhere around that area, which then created this giant vacuum. And as often happens, especially as we've seen throughout Africa's more modern history, some pretty nefarious characters can come in and start doing some pretty shady shit. And I'm pretty sure this was like a militaristic regime that was running Nigeria in the wake of the sort of the failed Biafra secession movement, if I'm not mistaken. So it sounds like that's what they're talking about. It's rife with political and economic corruption going on here. So this sounds revolutionary, lyrically. And at this point, I'm still not 100% sure of who the zombie is. But I'm getting a clearer picture. It's starting to like narrow down the possibilities. He repeats that lyrical bit before about what zombie won't do unless he's told, which the idea of not doing something unless you're told, and then the thumbnail for the actual video is I'm starting to connect. So it sounds like he's talking about like the military or the troops that make up the military doing the bidding of whoever their corrupt leader was at the time. I'm not even sure. But he then delivers some yet to be heard vocals, but I'm only catching lines here and there. Just the oft repeated line of no break, no job, no sense, I think I caught. After this comes another stanza of lyrics that is repeated, and he's saying something like, go on, kill, go on, die, go on, quench, Now I don't know what if it quench is even accurate, but the go on kill, go on die sounds like 1A and 1B of the job requirements for a soldier. So again, I'm starting to get a clearer picture of what this is about. So at this point, I think it's pretty clear that the song has again this sort of revolutionary feel to it, which is only further enhanced or magnified by this next bit of lyrics where it sounds like he's literally barking marching orders, which are punctuated again by these group vocals chanting "zombie," and at the still about maybe the 3/4 of the mark, around the 8:15 or 8:14 mark, he abruptly delivers the line "halt." And then at the 8:20ish mark, he delivers the command "order." And it's done so with a little extra bit of character. And this added the sense of like bravado or clout to his tone. And he then clears his throat very intently before calling again, even more fervently, for order. And we get more of that call and response, fall in, fall out, again, sort of like out of march, falling in and out of march. Again, soldiers. And so, yeah, this is coupled with the chanting "zombie," and then another halt and even more commanding order is delivered while the drummer stays working that metallic block that I enjoyed so much, and the guitar funkily noodles away. Then in come these beautifully cascading keys that I did not predict hearing. And it's like these little flourishes rain down over the aforementioned instrumentation. And the group vocals and horns join, and now everything is pushing forward with chants of "zombie" over the top. The keys eventually depart, giving way for more of that stellar horn and woodwind work for them to shine, during which there is a brief, and I mean ever so brief, pause at the 11:17 mark before we get treated to perhaps the best of these little mini solos provided by what sounds like a sax. But I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it sounded like. And eerily, the motif shifts into this slightly disjointed or askew version of Reveille, which all but confirms my suspicion that this song is pointed at the ruling military, and then the song comes to an end. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. In two very different reasons. The rhythm section was fucking amazing. Those horns added life to the track, and the vocals and the lyrics gave the track teeth and purpose. This was a joy to listen to, and honestly provided me with this really interesting amalgam that I kind of just rambled on at the end of my experience. But it's a really interesting amalgam between that music sometimes does. This isn't the first time, it isn't the last, but it's a shining example of it, which is wedding beautiful art with brutal history. And the result is kind of and it is this kind of enlightenment you can't quite achieve by simply reading a book or even watching a documentary. It feels closer to the subject matter and more intimate and less sanitized or sterile. There's just this more visceral connection to what happened because there's this indigenous music that is kind of illustrating the story. So yeah, you just feel closer to the whole experience. Great track, and great overall listening experience. I had a lot of fun with this one, as dark as it seemed to be.
Cool. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, I appreciate the fact that this isn't a short song at all. And I'll get into it. But this is a really important song, I think, both in terms of the genre and the artist. So, I hoped you would enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
So I'll get into it. There's a lot to get into with Fela Kuti. I'll try and keep it brief, and we might do some more stuff and go a bit further. So Fela Anikulapo Kuti, he was born Olufelo Olusegun Olodotun Ransom Kuti. Names are just like winter coats with these guys. He was a Nigerian musician and political activist. So he's regarded as the principal innovator of Afrobeat, a Nigerian music genre that combines West African music with American funk and jazz. So Kuti was born into the Ransom Kuti family, really interesting, upper middle class um, in colonial Nigeria, which was ruled by the British from the like 1850s, 60s through to 1960 independence. His mother, Fumileo Ransom Kuti, was an anti-colonialist feminist. She actually led some female riots, and she was the first woman in Nigeria to drive a car in about 1935, 1936, but that's by the by. And his dad, Israel Oludoton Ransom Kuti, was an Anglican minister, school principal, and the first president of the Nigerian Union of Teachers. So they're quite affluent and they're quite sort of, involved in politics. And he's got some brothers that were all doctors, and he was 1958. He was sent to London to study medicine, but he decided instead to study music at the Trinity College of Music, and there's a blue plaque where he stayed in London, with the trumpet being his preferred instrument. Whilst there, he formed the band Kula Lobotos and played a fusion of jazz and highlife. Highlife is a Ghanaian music genre mixing African meter and rhythms with Western jazz melodies. So I'm not familiar with that, but that sounds really intriguing, so I must dig some out. But anyway, 63, Kuti moved back to a newly independent Federation of Nigeria. He reformed Kula Lobotos, and he also trained as a radio producer for the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation. In 1969, he went to the United States and did a mini tour. He spent 10 months in Los Angeles, and while he was there, he discovered Black Power through a couple of activists from the Black Panthers. It was really pivotal for him, that experience, because it heavily influences what he would do next in terms of his music and his political views. But apparently also a rival promoter tipped off the authorities that they didn't have visas and they were like kicked out at that point. So he goes back to Nigeria. The group was then renamed the Africa 70, and the lyrical themes changed from love, to social issues. And he formed a thing called the Kalakuta Republic, which was a commune and a recording studio. And he decided to declare it independent from the Nigerian military state. He also set up a nightclub in the Empire Hotel. He first called it the Afro Spot, and later the Africa, with a K, Africa Shrine, where he performed regularly, and he officiated at personalized Yoruba traditional ceremonies in honor of his native ancestral faith. He also changed his name to Anikulapo, which means he who carries death in his pouch, with the interpretation, I will be the master of my own destiny and decide when it's time for death to take me. And he stopped using the hyphenated surname Ransom Kuti because he considered Ransom his slave name. So his name changes a lot, and the band as well. So when I refer to Fela Kuti, I'm referring to the band with Africa 70 or Egypt 80 or whatever, and the Ransom Kuti and all the different names. Just refer to him as Fela Kuti, it's easier. So just a little bit about the music. The musical style of Afrobeat, which he largely created, is a complex fusion, it says here, of jazz, funk, highlife, and traditional Nigerian and African chants and rhythms. It contains elements of psychedelic soul and has a lot of similarities to James Brown's music, which I'm sure you heard. Now, Tony Allen, I think it's just a great name. I forgot what his African name is, but he called himself Tony Allen. He is Nigerian as well. He's his drummer of 20 years. Brian Eno described him as the best drummer ever. He was instrumental in the creation of Afrobeat. They were mates with Ginger Baker. He came over and they did stuff together. Kuti once stated that there'd be no Afrobeat without Tony Allen. There are clear, audible musical similarities between Kuti's compositions and the work of Electric Era Miles Davis, and also some elements of Sly Stone there as well. So really interesting stuff. Just the format and everything. So his band was notable for having 2 baritone saxes and also sometimes an alto as well, where most groups only use one. There was also multiple guitars doing the same parts as well. It was common in African and African influenced music, and it could be seen in funk and hip hop. His band sometimes performed with 2 bassists as well, playing interlocking melodies and rhythms. So sometimes you hear this amazing bass and it's actually 2 of them sort of locking in. The electric West African style guitar and Afrobeats is a key part of the sound, and it gives it a basic structure with repeating chordal melodic statements, riffs, or grooves. I always think of it like reggae as well. That sort of just keeps it going. some elements often presented in Kuti's music are the call and response within the chorus and figurative but simple lyrics. His songs are also very long, at least 10 to 15 minutes in length. Many reach 20 or 30 minutes, while some unreleased live tracks will last 45 minutes when performed live. Typically, there would be an instrumental introduction, a jam section of the song before Kuti starts singing in the main part of the song. His main instruments that he played were the saxophone and keyboards, but he also played the trumpet, electric guitar, and occasional drum solo. Kuti refused to perform songs again after he had already recorded them, which hindered his popularity outside Africa. So once he put the record out, he wouldn't play it, which is astounding. But
Yeah.
his music was really popular amongst the Nigerian public and Africans in general. He decided to sing, as you heard, in pidgin English, which is interesting when we compare it to the Badu Mokhtar and his keeping his heritage, which was more under threat, I think. But he's speaking that because there's so many languages around his area, they speak a very diverse number. So the pidgin English sort of crosses loads of boundaries. As popular as Kuti's music became in Nigeria and elsewhere, it was unpopular with the ruling government, and raids on the Calacuta Republic were frequent. So in 1976, 77, the album was released in 76 in Africa, I believe, but then 77 in the UK. So most books say 77. But they released the album Zombie. Now his term album it could be one, it could be two, three, sometimes one song actually on both sides, just to, part one, part two, or it's like one song on one side. I think there's two or three on the other. That's his album,
Jesus.
But he heavily criticized Nigerian soldiers and used the zombie metaphor to describe the Nigerian military method. So, personnel, please forgive me for murdering all these people's names. The only one I've got is Fela Kuti and Tony Allen. They're bang on. But anyway, Fela Kuti.
Kudos for making it over the Tony Allen hurdle. I mean, that must have been taxing.
Well, I've got his name here. So, Fela Kuti, tenor sax, alto sax, piano, and vocals. This is on the album. Laddie Alabi, aka Tony Allen, drums, and he was also the band leader. I was a band leader for 20 years. Lekan Animashuan, baritone sax. Tunde Williams, first trumpet. Nkoma Ukem, second trumpet. Nekwe Atifo, bass guitar. Leke Benson, first guitar. Oghene Kologbo, tenor guitar. Akuli Ojay, third guitar. Olafandinde Kofi, first congas. Adoneti, second congas. Shini Abiodun, third congas. Baba Jide Olaleye, maracas. Eula Abiyomi, that's percussion, but they always put sticks, which I think is great. I'm the stick man. And then we have Falake Oladiende chorus, Omolola Asiete chorus, Tujumande Adijibi chorus, Falake Olajeo chorus, Rodke Adeson chorus, and Bose Ashuho chorus. There you go. Apologies. All music of this album said Zombie was the most popular and impacting record that Fela Kuti and Africa 70 would record. It ignited the nation to follow Fela's lead and antagonize the military zombies that had the population by the throat. Since the groove was so absolutely contagious, it took the nation by storm. People in the street would put on a blank stare and walk with hands afront proclaiming zombie whenever they would see soldiers. So they actually made up little dances and they would perform in front of the soldiers, calling them zombies, which you imagine went down really well. Robert Kreiskel said the sound is real fusion music. If James Brown stuff is Afro-American, then this is African. Absolutely American African. Pitchfork ranked it at number 90 in their list of 100 best albums of the 1970s. And the album was included in the book 1001 Albums Was Here Before You Die. There's Deborah. And I think this is it's in the right years, in 1976. That's interesting. So there is a different original cover, I should think. And next to it, Peter Tosh, Legalize It.
Yeah, why
Interesting.
not?
Bedfellows. Stevie under the page, Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life, fantastic. Phantom Comes Alive. Oh, Eno, Before and After Science. Going this way. Ramones, obviously. Double page it would be. Yeah. Penguin Cafe Orchestra that we covered. Jean-Michel Jarre, Oxygen. Oh, and Parliament, Mothership Connection. Wowsy. What a time to be alive. So I shall go over the lyrics, which are a little bit repetitive, but they with the music is has that groove to it. So zombie oh zombie, bracket zombie oh zombie, zombie oh zombie, zombie oh zombie, zombie no go go unless you tell them to go zombie. Zombie no go stop unless you tell them to stop, zombie. Zombie no go turn unless you tell them to turn, zombie. Zombie no go think unless you tell them to think, zombie. Zombie oh zombie, zombie oh zombie, zombie oh zombie, zombie oh zombie. Zombie no go unless you tell them to go, zombie. Zombie no stop unless you tell them to stop, zombie. Zombie no turn unless you tell them to turn, zombie. Zombie no think unless you tell them to think, zombie. Zombie oh zombie, zombie oh zombie, zombie oh zombie, zombie oh zombie. Tell them to go straight, a jara, a jara, a jaw. No break, no job, no sense. A joro, a jaro, a joro. Tell him to go kill. A joro, a jaro, a joro. No break, no job, no sense. A joro, a jaro, a joro. Tell him to go quench. A joro, a jaro, a joro. No break, no job, no sense. A joro, jaro, joro. Go on, kill. Joro, jaro, joro. Go on, die. Joro, jaro, joro. Go on, quench. Joro, jaro, joro. Put on reverse. Joro, jaro, joro. Go on, quench. Joro, jaro, joro. Go on and kill. Joro, jaro. Go on and die. Joro, jaro. Put down for a reverse, George Aljo. Go on, die, George Aljo. Go on, quench. Go and kill. Put down reverse. George Aljo, zombie, way now, one way. George Aljo, zombie, way now, one way. George Aljo, zombie, one way. George Aljo. And then he goes into his drill march routine. Attention, zombie. Quick march. Slow march, zombie. Left turn. Right turn, zombie. About turn. Double up, zombie. I love the way he pronounces it. Sometimes he goes salute rather than salute, which is fantastic. Open your hat, zombie. Stand at ease. Fall in, zombie. Fall out. Fall down, zombie. Get ready. Attention, zombie. Quick march. Slow march, zombie. Left turn. Right turn, zombie. About turn. Double up, zombie. Salute. Open your hat, zombie. Stand at ease. Fall in, zombie. Fall out. Halt. Order. And then he goes through it all again. I'm not going to do it again. At the end is salute. Get ready, halt, order, and then he mumbles one more time, everybody. And then it's back in. Attention, quick march, slow march, left turn, right turn, about turn, double up, salute, open your hat, stand at ease, fall in, fall out, fall down, get ready, attention, quick march, slow march, left turn, right turn, about turn, double up, salute, open your hat, stand at ease, fall in, fall out, fall down, get ready, halt, order, dismiss. And then we get that very strange keyboard solo that's not even Casio, it's more like Bon Tempi. It's very, but it's quite affecting. And then we got loads more zombies with the return of the brass, and then it finishes. It is an epic, I have to say. Yeah. So, but it's only part of the story. So the album was a massive success, and it infuriated the government, who raided the Kulakuta Republic with over 1,000 soldiers.
Jesus.
During the raid, Kuti was severely beaten, and his elderly mother at this point was fatally injured after being thrown from a window.
Fuck.
The commune was burnt down, and Kuti's studio, all his instruments, and all his master tapes were destroyed. Kuti claimed he would have been killed had it not been for a commanding officer's intervention when he was being beaten. So his response to the attack was to deliver his mother's coffin to the Dodan barracks in Lagos. And he also wrote 2 songs, Coffin for Head of State and The Unknown Soldier, referring to the official inquiry that claimed that an unknown soldier had destroyed the commune on his own. Kuti and his band took up residence in the Crossroads Hotel after the shrine that club had been destroyed as well, along with the commune. This is where it gets even weirder. In 1978, he married 27 women, many of whom were dancers, composers, and singers with whom he worked. The marriages served not only to mark the anniversary of the attack, but also to protect Kuti and his wives from the authorities' false claims that Kuti was kidnapping women. So if you had a marital relationship with them, they couldn't come in and intervene. Later, he adopted a rotation system of maintaining 12 simultaneous wives. At a concert that year in Accra, rioting broke out during the song Zombie, and it caused Kuti to be banned from entering Ghana. The same year at the Berlin Jazz Festival, most of Kuti's musicians, including Tony Allen, deserted him due to rumours that he planned to use all the proceeds to fund his presidential campaign. He did insist that most of the royalties went to him alone, even though obviously clearly his band is helping the sound. So he's a funny old duck, as they say. 1979, Kuti formed his own political party, which he called the Movement of People, MOP, to clean up society like a mob, but it quickly became inactive due to his confrontations with the government of the day. In 1983, he nominated himself for president in Nigeria's first elections in decades, but his candidature was refused. This time, he formed a new band called him Egypt 80, which reflected the view that the Egyptian civilization, knowledge, philosophy, mathematics, and religious systems are African and must be claimed as such. In 1984, the government jailed him on a charge of currency smuggling. Amnesty International and others denounced the charges as politically motivated. Amnesty designated a prisoner of conscience, and other human rights groups also took his case. After 20 months, General Ibrahim Babangida released him from prison. On his release, Kuti divorced his 12 remaining wives, citing marriage brings jealousy and selfishness, since his wives would regularly compete for superiority. That's a nightmare.
Who couldn't have seen that coming?
During the 80s, he continued to release albums with Egypt 80 and tour in the States and Europe, and he remained politically active. His output slowed in the 90s, as you'd imagine, until he ceased putting out albums altogether. On the 21st of January 1993, he and 4 members of the Africa 70 were arrested and were later charged with the murder of an electrician. Rumours also speculated that Fela Kuti was suffering from an illness for which he was refusing treatment. And then on the 3rd of August 1997, Kuti's brother, Olikayo Ramson Kuti, already a prominent AIDS activist and former Minister of Health, announced that Kuti had died the previous day from heart failure due to complications with AIDS. Kuti had been an AIDS denialist, and his widow maintained that he did not die of the disease. Since 1998, the Felabration Festival, an idea pioneered by his daughter Yeni Kuti, is held every year at the New Africa Shrine, his old club, to celebrate the life of this music legend and his birthday. And in 2022, Kuti was inducted into the Black Music and Entertainment Walk of Fame. And in 2023, Rolling Stone ranked Kuti at number 188 on its list of 200 greatest singers of all time.
Wow.
There's a shitload more about him, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But we'll get into bits and pieces of it. I mean, he did an album. I've got this shiny stuff, and I can get that. Called, you see that it's called Expensive Shit.
Heard of it.
And there's a story behind that about when he was imprisoned, etc. But we'll get into that next time. Okay. So yeah, just the first sort of bits about Fela Kuti. He's amazing, he's really interesting, and a hell of a back catalogue. But there's some great stuff in there. So I think I'll get another thing for you.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, cool. All right, I shall wrap things up. Thanks for listening, Sandy. Folks out there, tell us what you think. I'm sure there's people who are more familiar with Fela Kuti and his works than I am. So drop us some lines. If you like this, please do hit the like button. And please drop us some comments about this song, what you think of it if you've not heard it before. And if you have other stuff by Fela Kuti, I've got my ideas about next steps, but love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Come on board. The water is chlorinated, just like American chicken. And totally safe. That being said, we'd love to see you on board. We do appreciate everybody who does support the channel. Until next time, when we see you all on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.